welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. China's expansionist policy poses threat to Indo-Pacific. Srinagar Sports Conclave discusses strategies for promoting sportsmanship. And Nepal celebrates longest chariot festival, Rato Machindranath. Let's begin the show. China has territorial disputes with more countries than it shares its borders with. The Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, with Xi Jinping at the helm, has used deceitful tactics and manipulation in order to attempt to assert territorial control over other sovereign territories. Beijing has flouted all international norms in its expansionist bid to control more territory. Join us as we explore how China's long-standing modus operandi of usurping other nations' territory has become even more sinister and calculated, and why the world needs to intervene now more assertively than ever before.
A strained Indo-Chinese relationship is witnessing a further plunge, courtesy of China's repeated illegal and provocative campaigns to alter the status quo along the line of actual control, the de facto border between the two nuclear-armed countries. Comically, but equally concerning, China has now staked claims on parts of India's northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh, arguing that these locations were part of Greater Tibet. A desperate Beijing unilaterally renamed as many as 11 Indian locations, which included names of mountain peaks, rivers, and residential areas. This is not the first time that Beijing has employed such tactics. Previously, in 2017 and 2021, China's Civil Affairs Ministry had renamed other Indian locations, triggering another political confrontation. New Delhi called out China's expansionist plans then, and New Delhi is calling out China's expansionist plans now.
ये पहली बार नहीं है कि चाइना इस तरह के कोई अटेम्प्ट कर रहा है और हमने उसको खंडन किया था ऐसे अटेम्प्ट्स का। आपने जिक्र किया है अरुणाचल प्रदेश के बारे में। देखिए, उसमें भी हमने कहा था कि अरुणाचल प्रदेश हमारे अभिन्न अंग है भारत का, और ये जो अपने नाम लगाना या फिर अपने इन्वेंटेड नेम्स हमने जो कहा था, उससे जो सिचुएशन है ग्राउंड में वो नहीं बदल सकता और रियलिटी नहीं बदल सकती है।
China is aggressively trying to increase its influence in the Indo-Pacific region, which is home to nearly 65% of the world's population. According to the Observer Research Foundation, ORF, China's rise as an economic and military powerhouse has resulted in a tectonic shift in the power balance. ORF research indicates that managing the rise of a tactfully aggressive China will be critical for the safety, security, and stability of the Indo-Pacific. And while the majority of the countries in the Indo-Pacific region are now facing territorial conflicts with China, they find India, Australia, and Japan as emerging power centers who can both challenge and check China's ambitionist and expansionist plans.
This region is under threat, which is China's domination. When we compare Asia Pacific and Indo-Pacific, we can find one feature. Indo-Pacific includes all countries which have the problem with China, especially the border problem. So that's why Indo-Pacific is more easier to identify how to deal with China. Indeed, Quad is a group of the great powers in the Indo-Pacific, except China. So that's why Indo-Pacific and Quad is one set. So to deal with China, this concept is needed.
China's expansionist agenda was established in 2013 by President Xi Jinping with the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. To date, 147 countries have signed on to BRI projects or indicated an interest in doing so. However, many of these countries are now concerned that China is using BRI funds to gain influence and control, and that they are falling into a debt trap. Beijing's expansionism is not only a threat to its neighbors, but the entire Indo-Pacific region and other countries. India's efforts to contain China will not only benefit India and her citizens, but the broader Indo-Pacific region as well.
Jammu and Kashmir has produced a number of sportspersons who have often made India proud on various national and international platforms. Besides cricket, sportspersons have also made their mark in games like wushu, martial arts and winter games. Authorities recently organized a day-long sports conclave with the goal of creating a roadmap for optimal performance besides discussing strategies for developing sports in the Union Territory. Take a look.
Authorities in Jammu and Kashmir are taking a number of steps to harness the talent of its youngsters and motivate them to indulge in various games and sports. Walking on the same lines, the Department of Youth Services and Sports recently organized a day-long sports conclave for discussing strategies for developing sports scenario of the Union Territory. The event was attended by a number of dignitaries, teachers, lecturers and officials including the Director of J&K Youth Services and Sports, Sarmad Hafiz.
हमारा यहाँ पे यूथ सर्विसेज एंड स्पोर्ट्स का हमने आज यहाँ एक कॉन्क्लेव किया था जिसमें हमारे जो फिज़िकल एजुकेशन का डिपार्टमेंट है, जिसमें हमारे ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर्स, हमारे जोनल फिज़िकल एजुकेशन ऑफिसर्स, हमारे लेक्चरर्स, फिज़िकल एजुकेशन टीचर्स, मास्टर्स, उन सब ने शिरकत की. एंड दिस इज़ द वे फॉरवर्ड. दिस वाज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर अस कि जो हमारा विजन है फॉर स्पोर्ट्स, खासकर इन फ्यूचर, क्योंकि आप जानते हैं कि हमारे यूथ जो है, यूथ ही हमारी सोसाइटी को बिल्ड करता है. एंड इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट दिस डिपार्टमेंट वर्क्स इन अ मिशन मोड एंड वी आर एबल टू मेक अ ट्रू डिफरेंस टू द सोसाइटी, ट्रू डिफरेंस टू द लाइव्स ऑफ द पीपल. हमारे यहाँ के बच्चे जो हैं, खासकर हमारा यूथ है, दे हैव ट्रिमेंडस टैलेंट. ऑल दे रिक्वायर इज़ अ प्लेटफॉर्म. यूथ सर्विसेज एंड स्पोर्ट्स डिपार्टमेंट ने काफ़ी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो है यहाँ डेवलप किया, काफ़ी गेम्स भी हुई. आपने देखा कि पिछले साल में वी हैड मोर देन 20 नेशनल गेम्स दैट वर हेल्ड इन जम्मू एंड कश्मीर. देयर वर सम इंटरनेशनल इवेंट्स हेल्ड ऑल्सो. हमें उम्मीद है कि वी आर एबल टू प्रोवाइड दैट प्लेटफॉर्म, दैट एक्सपोजर टू आवर यूथ ताकि वो एक्सेल करें. ऑलरेडी दे आर एक्सेलिंग अ ग्रेट डील एंड देयर इज़ अ लॉट दैट we can do and lot that our entire workforce in the youth services and sports department can do in this regard.
The conclave focused on emphasizing the importance of sports as an effective tool to steer the youth away from social ills and utilize their energy in a positive direction. Different presentations highlighting the challenges, participation analysis and the vision of future were also shown and discussed at the event. The objective of the conclave was to find ways to create opportunities for the youth to develop their physical and mental potential and contribute positively towards the growth and development of society.
पहली बार यहाँ पे स्पोर्ट्स कॉन्क्लेव हो रहा है एक दिन का, जिसमें पूरे जो भी फिजिकल एजुकेटर्स हैं, जो भी एक्सपर्ट्स हैं डिपार्टमेंट में, वो अपने इनोवेटिव आइडियाज शेयर कर रहे हैं रिगार्डिंग हाउ वी कैन डेवलप द स्पोर्ट्स इन जम्मू एंड कश्मीर यूनियन टेरिटरी. इट इज़ वेरी इन्फॉर्मेटिव प्रोग्राम. इसमें जितने भी जोनल फिजिकल एजुकेशन ऑफिसर्स हैं वो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं, जितने भी डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर्स हैं वो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं कश्मीर प्रोविडेंस के, और जितने भी हमारा जॉइंट डायरेक्टर साहब है, हमारे डायरेक्टर साहब है और हमारे सेक्रेटरी सरमद हफीज सर हैं, सारे जितने भी ग्रेट डिग्निटीज ऑफ यूथ सर्विस एंड सपोर्ट्स है वो सारे पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं इसमें. दिस इज आई थिंक वेरी इनोवेटिव प्रोग्राम और इससे बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला है. और जो भी जहां पे हमें कहीं पे डिफिकल्टीज हो रही है फील्ड में, उनको इराडिकेट किस तरह से किया जाता है और स्पोर्ट्स को कैसे प्रोपोगेट किया जाए, स्पोर्ट्स को कैसे डेवलप किया जाए हमारे यूनियन टेरिटरी में, वो सब चीजें देखने को मिली है.
At the event, achievements and performance of the Department of Youth Services and Sports were also highlighted. Later, a house discussion was held in which officers discussed their valuable inputs and suggestions.
हर एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट से ऑलमोस्ट 5-6
टीचर्स आए, रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स आ जाए, जो इस रोड मैप कैसा होगा गेम्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स और फिजिकल एजुकेशन को डेवलप करने का, उस पे बात करने के लिए, डिस्कशन करने के लिए आए हैं। एक बहुत बड़ा डॉक्यूमेंट है जो मैंने सबमिट भी करा है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ J&K को थ्रू सेक्रेटरी साहब, वो मैंने सबमिट करा है ड्राफ्ट उसका। तो उसमें जो मेन जो मैंने वहाँ पे बोला है, एक तो है फॉर एग्जांपल जो हमारे यहाँ पे जो सिस्टम है, जो प्रोफाइलिंग ऑफ प्लेयर्स और यूथ, हमारा जो कनेक्ट है वो यूथ के साथ ही है। हमारा जो पॉलिसी मैंडेट है वो यूथ को एंगेज करने का है, उनको स्पोर्ट्स और गेम्स में एंगेज करने का है। तो मैंने उस पॉइंट पे जोर दिया कि उनकी एंगेजमेंट के लिए एक पॉलिसी हो, और उस पॉलिसी मैंडेट में जो स्कूल्स में हम पढ़ाते हैं या जो स्कूल्स में फिजिकल एजुकेशन इम्पार्ट करने हैं वो मैंडेटरी हो, वो क्यूरिकुलम बेस्ड हो, एटलीस्ट फ्रॉम 6 to 12 क्लास जो होता है, ताकि जो अकाउंटेबिलिटी है वो बड़े डिपार्टमेंट की और सारे बच्चे इसमें इन्वॉल्व हों। और इसके बगैर भी जो प्लेयर की प्रोफाइलिंग हो, उस बच्चे की प्रोफाइलिंग हो, वो साथ साथ होती रहे।
It is events like these that create opportunities for youth to develop their physical and mental potential and contribute positively towards the growth and development of society.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
The first group of Indian nationals arrived in New Delhi from Sudan on Wednesday after steps were taken to evacuate them from the African country. As part of the Indian government-led Operation Kaveri, 360 Indians were flown to the Indian capital from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. The evacuees chanted upon arrival at the airport and thanked the Indian government for bringing them back safely. In a statement posted on social media platform Twitter, Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar said, "India welcomes back its own. Operation Kaveri brings 360 Indian nationals to the homeland as first flight reaches New Delhi." Sudan's army and the RSF Rapid Support Forces paramilitary force battled on Khartoum's outskirts on Wednesday, undermining a truce in an 11-day conflict that civilian groups fear will tighten the military's grip and revive the sway of an ousted autocrat's loyalists. Airstrikes and artillery have killed at least 512 people, wounded nearly 4,200, destroyed hospitals and limited food distribution in the vast nation where a third of the 46 million people were already reliant on humanitarian aid. Recycled art and people-powered mobile sculptures highlighted Earth Day in Key West as the Pepio Kinetic Sculpture and Art Bike Parade rolled through the island's historic downtown. Saturday's procession featured 21 sculptural floats created with recycled or repurposed materials, the Florida Keys News Bureau reported. Fans of recycled art can also explore the Stanley Pepio Junkyard Rebel exhibit at Key West Fort East Martello Museum. Climate change campaigners gathered worldwide with volunteers worldwide planting trees and clearing trash to mark the 54th annual celebration of the environment. Average global temperatures could hit all-time highs in 2023 and 2024, climate scientists have warned. Crowds of Israelis have taken to the streets of Tel Aviv the day before the country's Independence Day to protest instead of celebrating in the wake of judicial crisis. This year, Israel celebrates its 75th anniversary in a fractious and uncertain mood, overshadowed by a battle over the judiciary that has opened some of the deepest social divisions since the foundation of the country in 1948. During the protest, a stage hosted various artists who sang along with Israeli figures reading parts of the Israeli Declaration of Independence. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis protested every week since the start of the year against plans by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's nationalist religious government to push through curbs on the judiciary they see as an existential threat to the democracy. The government and its supporters say the changes are needed to rein in activist judges who have intruded aggressively into the sphere of parliament and the executive, but agreed last month to pause the plans to allow for more consultation.
The declining health sector has become a serious concern for the people of the illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan. There is a wide spectrum of issues this sector, among which ubiquitous lack of doctors tops the list. Patients inevitably have to travel to major cities for better treatment options.
People in the illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan are suffering at the hands of an apathetic administration controlled by Pakistan that refuses to address key issues of the local populace. As if being stripped of their resources, livelihood, and dignity wasn't enough, they now have to struggle to even meet their basic healthcare needs and gain the slightest of empathy from doctors in government hospitals. They allege that upon visiting the hospital, there is no doctor to attend to the patient. If they are lucky, the best they get is a doctor instructing a nurse through messaging apps. The presence of a medical professional is a luxury that people of Gilgit-Baltistan cannot afford.
बसीन का एक नौजवान 22 साल जो उसका मरज भी पता नहीं था, हॉस्पिटल में लाया है इमरजेंसी में, तो अंदर डॉक्टर ना होने की गफलत से आज वो मरीज़ अपनी जान से चला गया है। तो सवाल यहाँ पे ये है सर कि इतना बड़ा हॉस्पिटल है, इमरजेंसी में कोई भी आ सकता है, डॉक्टर की गैर मौजूदगी में यहाँ पे मतलब आज एक नौजवान की डेथ हो गई। तो आज ये भाई हमारा बसीन का भाई इसकी डेथ हो गई है, कल हमारा कोई भाई भी इस तरह डेथ होगा। उन्होंने 3 घंटा इसको यहाँ पे रखा है और उसके जो टेस्ट वगैरह होते थे वो करके डॉक्टर को ये व्हाट्सएप कर रहे थे, यहाँ पे जो नर्सिस वगैरह बैठे हुए हैं वो लोग। तो डॉक्टर आगे से कह रहा है कि ट्रीटमेंट उनको व्हाट्सएप के ज़रिए बताई जा रही है कि वो डॉक्टर यहाँ पे नहीं आता है। तो ये लोग किससे पूछेंगे? सब सोए हुए, न पूछने वाला कोई है, न इंतज़ामिया का कोई बंदा यहाँ पे इन लोगों से पूछने के लिए आ रहा है। ये अपनी मैयत लेके यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं।
The geographic location of Gilgit-Baltistan and its topography makes it prone to harsh climatic conditions. Such vulnerabilities, along with the shortage of health facilities, add to the woes of the people. Locals have been long raising the issue of the shortage of doctors and carelessness shown by medical staff in the region, but the government has failed to address their problems. As a result, many patients with serious conditions do not survive. Their key demands including an immediate posting of a doctor and a technician on a permanent basis.
जो 2014 में मेरे सग के भाई के साथ भी यही वाक़यात हुए, उसको जब यहाँ पे हम ज़ख्मी हालत पे लाए, यहाँ पे हमने इमरजेंसी में रखा, 1 घंटे के तक डॉक्टर का कोई पता नहीं था, उसकी डेथ हो गई। इसी तरह यहाँ पे हज़ारों हिसाब से बच्चे मरीज़ इधर आते हैं, यहाँ पे कोई भी डॉक्टर मौजूद नहीं होता है इमरजेंसी में। अमूमन यहाँ पे ये होता है कि ये एक एमओ लिख के देता है, भाई ये यहाँ पे इसका इलाज नहीं होता, आप सीमेज ले जाओ। अभी गरीब बंदा सीमेज कहाँ ले जाएगा सीमेज में? इसलिए यहाँ पे हमारी ये मुतालिबा है, कम से कम इस अस्पताल को अगर रन करना है तो सही तरीके से करे, डॉक्टर इमरजेंसी में मौजूद हो।
Over the years, the unemployment rate has been climbing rapidly in Gilgit-Baltistan, and people here are in dire need of government assistance when it comes to healthcare and other forms of social security. However, Pakistan, on the contrary, has ensured that people in this illegally occupied region continue to reel under its misrule that provides a life riddled with discrimination and misery.
Moving on. One of the biggest chariot festivals, the Rato Machindranath Jatra, was kicked off in the Kathmandu Valley. Scores of people came onto the streets to pull the chariot around Lalitpur city. According to the lunar calendar, the longest chariot festival of Nepal begins on the 4th day of the bright fortnight of Bachala, the 7th month of the lunar Nepal Sambat calendar. Have a look.
The festivity is back again in Nepal as Ratu Machindranath, a red god of the Himalayan nation, on Friday ascended the sky-scraping chariot which would tour around the city for months. The chariot festival of Ratu Machindranath, which rolls out onto the city, depends highly on astrology. The red god, locally known as Bungadug in Neva fraternity, which means god of rain and harvest, is the longest jatra in Nepal, which runs on for months.
अब चल्ने भन्दा पनि लगभग हाम्रो सिरियली कन्टिन्यू गर्यो भने चाहिँ लगभग 10 दिनसम्म होला सायद हैन अझ ठाउँ ठाउँमा गावालबाट सुन्दाराबाट लनखेलबाट अनि फेरि तल ल्याएर 80 टोल 30 टोलमा अनि 30 टोलमा राखेर कुनै दिन एउटा साइट राम्रो साइट हेरेर अनि त्यसपछि जावलखेल लान्छ अनि पछि त्यसको 4 दिनपछि त्यसपछिको 4 दिनमा चाहिँ फोटो जात्रा हुन्छ लगभग 10 या बढीमा 15 डेज जस्तो हुन्छ साइट मिल्यो भने चाहिँ कन्टिन्यूमा चाहिँ तान्ने दिन भनेको लगभग 6-7 दिन मात्र हुन्छ
Clad in red-colored jackets, dozens of members from the Neva community spend about 2 weeks preparing the sky-notching chariot, which indeed is the biggest chariot that is built on an annual basis in the Himalayan nation.
अब कारण त अहिले कस्तो न यो सबैभन्दा ठुलो लामो र ठुलो जात्रा पनि यही भन्छ हैन अब फिटमा लामो फिटमा भने चाहिँ 65 फिट हो 65 फिट जति छ अनि लामो चाहिँ किन भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो दुईटा यताबाट चकाजियो पनि आउँछ अनि दुईटा जात्रा हुने भएर यो 3 काठमाडौँ भक्तपुर ललितपुरको 3 शहरको जात्रा भन्छ कि यहाँबाट गावल लाँदा चाहिँ काठमाडौँको जात्रा हो अनि गावलबाट सुन्दारा लाँदा चाहिँ भक्तपुरको जात्रा हो अनि सुन्दाराबाट चाहिँ लनखेल जब नरवल खसाल्छ त्यो चाहिँ हाम्रो ललितपुरको जात्रा हुन्छ 3 शहर जात्रा हुन्छ अनि त्यहाँबाट तल आएपछि चाहिँ हाम्रो याकमिसा जात्रा भनेको एक्लो छोरीहरू अनि केटीहरूले तान्छ नि तलबाट नरवल खसालेबाट अलिकति तल उहाँहरूको चाहिँ याकमिसा जात्रा भने एक्लो छोरीको जात्रा हो अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ साइड हेरेर अनि फोटो जात्रा हुन्छ फोटो जात्रा भनेको चाहिँ सियोदेखि लिएर हाम्रो दाउरा चाहिँ घरमा जे छ नन लिभिङ थिङ्स सबको किरादेखि जीव जन्तुहरू सबैको जात्रा भन्छ कि फोटो जात्रामा चाहिँ
The chariot constructed annually basically uses wooden beams and thumbed adjustments to the shrine sanctum without using a single nail. It takes about 2 weeks for the Neva community to build it on and is given a final touch-up with decoratives before the chairing of the Lord in the chariot. Observed in the ancient town of Lalitpur, the sky-scraping chariot goes around the city for 4 days of the accession of God. After spending 4 days on the roadside constructed chariot, it is pulled to Bahal and rested for 1 day. After that, it is pulled on to Sundara and Mangal Bazar, where it is kept on for 1 day each. Then after, it is pulled on further to Lagan Khel, where it is kept on for 1 day. During that time, a day has been separated for women only to pull on the chariot and take it to Ithiha, and then making astronomical calculations, it is pulled onto Jawala Khel. There is a belief that residents of Bhaktapur can pull the chariot to their place and keep the god for 6 months. If the procession fails to take place before the Dashain, the major fortnight festival observed in Nepal during the month of October.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.